What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Take Three podcast. We're here Monday afternoon, same group as usual. My guy Alex. We're joined by Blaine again, who's been with us for the entire playoff run. Pretty dope to have his insight and his views on what has went on throughout this entire postseason. And then, as always, I'm Brandon. We're here Monday, if I already mentioned it, right off of a ridiculously wild conference championship Sunday. I'll say the last two rounds of the playoffs certainly made up for the wildcard weekend. It was probably the greatest 2 weeks. Now, I mean, maybe it was the greatest 2 weeks, but it was an amazing 2 weeks of football. What we saw, obviously, in that early game yesterday between the Cincinnati and Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs, pretty remarkable. I mean, I thought the game was honestly in the bag. I would assume basically the whole world thought the game was in the bag when they're up 21-3, was it? And they just complete meltdown. We'll get into that. And then the Jimmy G luck, you know what I mean? They said 19 weeks in, they said, Jimmy, it's finally time for you to do something. And we saw what happens when you have to have Jimmy do something. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the juice. And that's probably why he's gone next year. Good for Matt Stafford, even though him and Sean McVay, they wanted to lose very badly. We'll get into that. But I mean, let's just start with the Chiefs and the Bengals. What the hell happened? Obviously, the comeback, 18-point comeback, ridiculous. I don't think anybody saw it coming. Gutsy effort from everybody's like, it's a lot of talk, Joe Burrow, gutsy, Heisman. But I really got to give credit to that defense, man. That defense did exactly what Buffalo couldn't do. They lost the coin toss in overtime, which everybody said GG. I even thought it was GG, to be honest. I was like, yep, Mahomes going to do it. And then, nope, he doesn't do it. You know what I mean? And then even leading up to it, you know what I mean? Romo said that they're going to the Super Bowl. And I was like, watch, some fluky bullshit's going to happen. The guy that's 11 for 11 is going to shank a field goal. But Blaine, let's start with you. What was going through your mind? Obviously, when they're up 21-3, the botched, they probably should have kicked the field goal before half. And then whatever happened in the second half, man, they completed. It looked like the week 2, week 3 Chiefs returned. But I mean, what are your thoughts coming off of that AFC title game?
Yeah, that's where it all started for me, was the end of the first half. I just thought, you're in control of the game. Cincinnati had just scored to make it 21-10 on the P. Ryan screen. And at that point, it's just, let's kick our field goal, ensure our points, ensure that even to tie us, they've got to score 2 touchdowns, and we're in great shape. 5 seconds it's just way too many things can happen. If it was 7 seconds, I'd be all for, yeah, let Mahomes do what he needs to do. He can launch it out of the back of the end zone. But just the combination of factors there, it's the double-edged sword of when you have so much belief in your player. We've seen that happen quite a few times with the Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh dynamic, where Harbaugh literally just asks him, what do you want to do? And more times than not, it's worked. But there has to be a time when it's too much to lose and not enough to gain. I don't think you are going to be feeling much better about yourself if it's 28-10 to 24-10. You're going to be feeling cloud 9 in the locker room and feeling like you can't be stopped regardless. The only thing that's going to make you doubt yourself in the locker room at halftime is not scoring at all when you're down at the 1.5 yard line. And that's exactly what happened. Andy Reid didn't put his foot down, and then Mahomes did the one thing he couldn't do, which is throw a ball that didn't cross the goal line. I mean, that was just boneheaded by him. It was the beginning of a bunch of boneheaded decisions by him. Once you get into the end of the game, they're at the 3 yard line, 1st and goal. They hand it off, 2nd and goal. Mahomes runs 10 yards backwards and then tries to jet forward and loses 6. And then on 3rd and goal, he dips back like 15 yards, fumbles the ball. Game should have been over. And then he, gets bailed out by Harrison Butker kicking a 44-yard field goal to send it to overtime. But I just thought from the beginning of I just thought the beginning of all that started when Andy Reid didn't just put his foot down and say, we're getting our 3 points from the 1 yard line. We're going into the half 24-10. And then if you think about how things played out, that last drive that Mahomes got, because Burrow did everything he needed to do. So it's not one of those times where you can say, oh, well, time and score would have changed. It would have been a little different. No, they still got some turnovers. They still got some stops. And then Burrow went down and led multiple scoring drives. But the only difference is at the end, when Mahomes gets the ball, it would be 24-24. And when you get down to the 3 yard line, you can just take a couple kneels and kick the game-winning field goal. Instead, they were down 24-21 going into all that. And it should have never happened because they should not have left the field at halftime with fewer than 24 points.
It's I mean, that's spot on. It's crazy to think, but maybe too much power in Patrick Mahomes' hands. He looks over to the sideline, tells Andy, I want one more crack at this thing. And it's like, I guess when the quarterback's making $450 million over a 10-year contract, that's kind of, he has that power, but obviously it came back and bit him in the foot. Alex, what did you make of what we saw Sunday afternoon?
I thought Blaine nailed it with the turning point being right before halftime, not taking points, and the double-edged sword that is trusting Patrick Mahomes. And like you said, $450 million quarterback. So he's been starting right this 4-year run. You have 4 AFC conference appearances, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 title. It's an incredible run, right? And like the previous 3 years, you see all the things he does. So I can understand totally why Andy would say, all right, Patrick, that's fine. You want another crack at it. I would have operated under the assumption that Mahomes is going to throw it into the end zone or out of bounds, not to the side to Tyreek Hill like that. That was not a smart play. But it's like that double-edged sword. And like Harbaugh and Lamar is a really good example. But I know this has nothing to do with Tom Brady, but it just like seeing this, right, this 4-year run, and it was an incredible 4 years, and they're not done, right? They lost this year, but they only have 1 Super Bowl title in 4 runs, and they lost 2 conference titles appearances, and then got granted a beat up offensive line in the Super Bowl last year, but got embarrassed last year in the Super Bowl, right? And it just brings my mind to Brady and Belichick and the fact that through all those conference championships, all those Super Bowl appearances, they were able to end up on top like 7 out of 10 times, majority of the times. It's just so impressive to me because you see other organizations when they become elite like this and go on little runs, whether it was Russell Wilson Seahawks in 2012, 2013, they only got 1 title. This Mahomes run that's once again not over. I'm not counting him out or anything or short. Like they're going to be right back here, right? Or in the mix of it at the very least. And they only got 1 title, 4 conference appearances, 2 Super Bowl appearances. It just makes me think of how special that Brady Belichick thing was in that dynasty for 20 years, right? Because they were able to win these games. You realize how tough it is to win all these games. Granted, Kansas City had a horrible second half, 3 points only, and it was the last play of regulation to send it to overtime. 3 points in the second half and overtime. You don't deserve to go to the Super Bowl. You're at home, 21-3 lead. Like you have all those things going for you. You have Patrick Mahomes, which I get the double-edged sword part, right? And it bit him in the ass this time around. But like there's no excuses. They choked that away, dude. It made me think of the last time Andy Reid had 4 consecutive conference championships and the Eagles managed to choke 3 out of the 4 away. It just brought back those kind of memories. And it was an embarrassing second half for Kansas City, and Patrick Mahomes is way better than what he played, but man, that was rough.
Yeah, I mean, can we give our kudos to the Bengals as well? Because they started out like shit, to be honest. I mean, when it was 21-3, the whole offense was out of whack. I didn't know what plays they were calling, and they couldn't stop anything. They couldn't stop a nosebleed out of the gates, right? They were getting bombed on. It just looked like a mess, and it obviously looked like the game was gonna get out of control. But now we see the teams headed to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead. We'll get into that. Obviously, the Super Bowl matchup next week. But I mean, is this one resilient bunch? Bad O-line, injuries to their D-line, and Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, a little bit of Joe Mixon. You know, I mean, they just find ways. T. Higgins as well. I'm not going to count him out. They just found a way, right? When the world counted them out, they just kept going, kept battling, and it was really a special moment that we got to see Joe Burrow in year 2 go on the road and do this.
He also had no Uzoma. He lost him. And then just to give Burrow his flowers and props, we were on this podcast last week saying he's not going to be able to escape like Josh Allen. And he looked like Josh Allen on those runs, right? It looked very similar. There was one play where the pocket collapsed completely and he fought through Chandler Jones, went around, and then Chandler Jones dove and got his feet, and he lifted his feet up and got away from Chandler Jones twice in one play. It was just, when you make plays like that, that was truly special quarterbacking.
Yeah, just to correct you, that is big Chris Jones in the middle. Chandler Jones is in Arizona. Is in Arizona. It's all good there. But yeah, I mean, we sat there. Once he started doing that scramble and stuff at the end, I was like, yeah, we look like assholes, right? We said he's not breaking out of the pocket. And I was like, damn, like this is perfect. Any comment on that, Blaine?
No, I mean, I think you guys did a nice job, putting the bow on it. I guess I directed most of my commentary toward the Chiefs' failings. But yeah, you got to give the Cincinnati defense and certainly Joe Burrow credit. They did capitalize on their opportunities, but it was just a tale of two halves. And, the same things that make Chiefs fans happy were the Chiefs fans undoing yesterday, just with Mahomes, kind of getting a little bit too wild and crazy. But in that first half, it was pretty much to a T what we thought it would be, just a total mismatch in weight class. Chiefs had the ball 4 times, scored the first 3 times, and then on the 4th time the Bengals just got saved by the bell and stopped them at the 1-yard line. But it looked like they couldn't be stopped. And then, credit Zach Taylor and, the defensive coaching staff made some adjustments, and to hold Mahomes to 3 points in the second half was very impressive.
Facts. And now, before I get into really what they're looking at in the offseason, I just want to pose this question. I mean, obviously, we don't know the future, right? We don't know who's going to win what in the next 5-10 years. But I mean, coming off of this is now a second home AFC title game loss. I'll give them a pass for the Brady loss. But this is, this is pretty bad, right? You're up 18. I mean, you're already a 7-point favorite at home. Does this kind of hit the legacy at least a little bit? Say, I mean, obviously, if he reels off 4 or 5 Super Bowls in the next 15 years, I don't think many people will think about it. But say they only end up with 1 more Super Bowl, and they kind of this 4-year run, it's what could have this been? Obviously, with the cap hit's going to go up drastically after this year. But does this hit the Mahomes legacy at least a little bit?
I think it totally depends on how the rest of his career goes, right? If you, let's say, Travis Kelce gets older, he leaves, Tyreek Hill gets older, and like the weapons aren't the same, and they're never truly this level again, and they're not in Super Bowls again, then yeah, I think it will, right? Because you never know when these opportunities are going to come. We assumed Aaron Rodgers, I think he won in 2011. Could have been 2010, 2011. I think we all assumed he was going to at least go back to a couple Super Bowls, right? He hasn't even made it back. I think of Russell Wilson and that great Seattle team that was on the verge of going back to back. They never made it back again, right? They haven't reached that level again. So you really got to jump on these opportunities. And I think the same thing goes for like the Bengals side, right? They're here, right? They get the chance to win, but and all those core pieces are so young, but it's so hard to make the assumption that they're going to be there again. So it's just so important to jump on these opportunities. And that's why I say, like, if they get there and like Mahomes rattles off 2 more Super Bowls or whatever, I don't think it's going to matter legacy wise. But if it's something like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson and you struggle to get back to the Super Bowl, then we're definitely going to look back on this game and like these moments, and it's going to be legacy hits.
Facts. How about you, Blaine? Do you think the legacy kind of takes a knock, at least in the immediate?
Yeah, the comparison I wanted to make is one that Alex just touched on. It was the Russell Wilson one, because if you remember back, the Russell Wilson one was sort of the same dynamic where you got a really talented roster, a bunch of pieces that you can pay while the quarterback's on the rookie deal. As soon as the rookie deal runs out and the extension kicks in, you got to start letting pieces walk. The roster around the quarterback gets a lot more fragile, and it's not such a sure thing to get back to the Super Bowl. And the other thing you have to remember is quarterback salaries have skyrocketed at a much faster rate than the salary cap as a whole has. And what that means is, if things were bad for the Russell Wilson extension that he was getting, 5 years ago, the cap hasn't gone up enough to sort of quell just how much more Mahomes is making than Russell Wilson made. And that's the very concerning part, because you talk about not only Tyreek and Travis Kelce getting older, especially Kelce, and leaving, well before Mahomes' career comes to an end. But you got to remember, even if you think you can find or replace those guys, you're not going to be able to compete in free agency to pay them top of the market dollars, because you're paying your quarterback such a large percentage of the salary cap. And then on the Cincinnati side, the crazy thing to think about, tying this into Mahomes' legacy, is suddenly Mahomes has been to all these AFC championships, only has 1 ring to show for it. Joe Burrow can win 1 game in 2 weeks and have the same amount of Super Bowl rings as Patrick Mahomes. And that's quite alarming to me.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that kind of ties into, I'd say in the immediate, it definitely takes a hit. This is one that was in the bag, should have been in the bag, and it kind of got it got away from them in a big point. And I mean, before we move on to the NFC side, we got to talk, what do the Chiefs do going forward? When you look at Patrick Mahomes' cap hit this season, it was a 7.4 million cap hit. When you look at next year, it jumps up to 35.7. 2023, it's 46.7. And then it's into the 40s for the rest of the deal. It gets as high as 60 in 2027. So I mean, the number, it's skyrocketing, right? They were able to go out and get the Joe Thuneys. They were able to swing the Orlando Brown deals. They were able to go out. They had the flexibility to bring in Melvin Ingram when he got, I believe, cut by the Steelers. But it's like that flexibility is going to start getting pulled back, right? And then you're going to have your pieces, your young corners that are going to want paydays when their time is due, right? Not everybody's going to stick around. You have a Honey Badger who's back there, who he's up and he's going to hit the market and probably get paid unless he takes a pay cut to stick around. So what did the Chiefs do going forward roster wise? What do you guys see them looking? What could they add that could really push this team to the next level? Or I should say back to the Super Bowl. I don't really know about next level because I mean they're already at the top of the game, but what can help them get back to the Super Bowl? Obviously, when you have this team, the goal is the Super Bowl every year.
I'll say this. I don't have a good answer. And like to figure, they're going to have to do some cap space magic, right? With Mahomes' cap going so high, because they already had offensive struggles this year. They had some defensive struggles that came together in the end, right? But it's going to be even tougher moving forward. And the fact that you couldn't get it done this year is really concerning. The list of good young AFC quarterbacks seems to be growing, right? And not to mention they barely beat the Bills, and in the regular season they lost to the Titans, Bills, and Bengals. Plus there's also the Chargers and the Ravens that weren't in the playoffs this year. It's just they're more than capable of doing it, right? They have all those studs that we listed, but I don't have a good answer for that question, and I feel it's only going to get more difficult, right? So it's like the future is bright because they have those studs, but it's tough. It's tough to see how it's going to actually work.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. Just before I let Blaine kind of give us his insight on what the Chiefs could do, for comparison to Josh Allen's contract, his is only a $16.3 million hit next year, which means the Bills will have a little bit of flexibility to go maybe add a piece or two that could get them by the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are going to be super limited in what they can do. Because I believe they also have to sign Orlando Brown. Unless they're going to somehow tag him, he's up for a contract extension as well. So they have a lot of moving parts. It's going to be an interesting offseason in Kansas City coming off this 4-year run that only netted you one Super Bowl championship. But Blaine, what do you think the Chiefs need to do roster wise, kind of shift around some guys? What can they do to kind of keep up? It seems like now they got to try and keep up with the rest of the AFC, right?
Yeah, the two big things on my to-do list, if I'm the GM, is going to be getting the successor in the secondary to Honey Badger and Sorensen. Thornhill's still young, but there was times throughout the season that they weren't really using him how we envisioned them using him. They were putting Sorensen back there. They're rotating in some other guys. But for me, it's safety and it's the edge rushers. I don't know off the top of my head what Frank Clark's contract looks like and when that expires. I know Chris Jones is getting older, but for me, at least for next year and maybe the next couple of years, I still have enough belief in the offense to put up points. The question will be, can we get some more stops consistently? You know, they had that big run in the middle of the season where they were led by their defense while the offense was sputtering. But it seems like every time the offense has been kind of clicking at full speed this year, the defense has let them down, especially early in the season. Mahomes was doing everything he could. He was putting up numbers, and the defense was just giving up too many points. And the defense kind of took the reins. The offense was kind of sputtering. And then down the stretch, the offense got really hot again. It seemed like they were scoring all the time, and the Chiefs had problems stopping people again, like Joe Burrow in the second half and Josh Allen the entire game, and Joe Burrow in that Week 17 second half. So for me, it's you got to generate pressure. And then with the young corners, you got to kind of match that up with safeties who you believe in coverage, because Honey Badger's definitely lost a step, and he plays better around the line of scrimmage, it seems, than he did in coverage, at least back in his heyday. And then we all know that Sorensen is a complete liability in coverage. So just shore up the defensive line, especially the defensive ends, and get a better consistent pass rush that can actually bring down the quarterback, not chase, Allen and Burrow into making magical plays, but actually get the quarterback on the ground. or at least trust enough in your secondary to where you're not, feeling like you can't get a stop if these guys, the quarterbacks in the AFC, do buy extra time. So I think safety and edge rusher is kind of a must.
Yeah, great point. Frank Clark, he still has 2 more years, 26.3 million next year, 27.8 the following year in
So
2023.
he could be a cap casualty with those numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, they could get rid of him. It'd be 12.9 in dead cap, but that would obviously it would give them a little bit of flexibility, and maybe you go out and you can maybe bring back Melvin Ingram, he was fairly decent, but they got to find some cheap options, right? Patrick Mahomes isn't getting cheaper. That contract's really going to hinder them. The big thing I think they need to do as well is find a consistent running back. It doesn't seem like they were committed to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know if they thought he was too banged up or what, but I mean, to see Jerick McKinnon off of 2 knee replacements kind of take the reins in the playoffs, it was super weird to me. It feels like if they find a good running back, they have enough speed on the outside and enough vertical threats where you should be able to carve. Me and Alex were talking about this at work today. You should be able to carve 1,000 yards in that offense, right? Like there's so much plays up the seams and guys just you can't stack the box at all with those weapons. That if they found a consistent running back that they trusted, and maybe Andy Reid trusts himself to kind of bring back the reins from the $450 million quarterback at times and just run the ball, they would be even more dynamic, right? Because then, I mean, you got to worry about the run if they have the running back, and then the bombs over the top. I think running back's an interesting option considering how this season ended with them. Basically, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire only had 6 carries in the final game to McKinnon's 12. So I don't know if you think they would need to kind of at least or figure out if they want to go forward with Edwards-Helaire. He kind of gets banged up too much for me, and he kind of really doesn't have. He's good, but I don't think he really has like that NFL burst when I watch him run. I don't know. It's weird for me. I don't know if you guys agree, but he's not like super fast. Maybe they go later, I don't know, 5th round, 6th round, try to snag a running back that can kind of chew up some yards and stay healthy. Because I feel like you should be able to, if you're serviceable, you should be able to show up 1,000 yards in that scheme with all those threats on the outside. Any takes on that?
Yeah, I'm with you because that Reed scheme and like what he does for running backs, you would think they'd be very productive, right? We haven't really seen a running back be consistently productive since Kareem Hunt, and then Kareem Hunt had that incident and got released, but that added another dynamic to this offense. And as great as they've been over the last few years, they haven't found that out of the backfield consistently since Kareem Hunt, which is surprising considering Andy Reid's track record with running backs dating back to Philadelphia and how dynamic they can be in his scheme. So I'm right there with you, thinking if they found a dynamic running back that can stay healthy for him, I think it would add another dynamic to the offense.
Yeah, and it just allows you to slow down the game, right? When you're up 21-3, you can start slowing down the game, chewing the clock, get the defense to come up, and then bang, you set up your play actions, you set up your other plays. But really, they got to find a way, right? You can't just come out and try to go guns blazing all the time. Although you're paying Patrick Mahomes to run around like it's the playground, I just feel like having a running back that stays healthy and you can consistently trust would it would help that offense, especially in games where it seems now they have big leads where they just piss them away. They've done it now twice against the Bengals. They did it in the regular season as well. I guess it's time to swing over to the NFC side of the picture. Obviously, we saw the Rams, who so badly so badly wanted to lose yesterday. I mean, I don't know, from the bad challenges to the awful clock management to the throwing the ball right to Jaquiski Tart and him getting hit in the hands. That was pretty bad. Just everything, right? It seemed that they just wanted to go home. I don't know. For 2 straight weeks, it looked to me like the Rams wanted to go home, but you know what? You got to give them credit. They found a way. That front found a way to get after Jimmy G and reel in the 2017 W. If you're San Fran, I don't know, you got to be kicking yourself in the foot. You're up 17-7. Obviously, you mentioned right off the rip, it felt very similar to that Super Bowl. I don't know. I was like, dude, this team really has the Rams number. I was like, they're really going to beat them 7 straight times and send this whole Rams, I don't know, fictional, it's not even really dynasty, but this Rams like era of going off for it straight into dismay, because they're just going to run, they're going to steal games in their building, win 7 straight and go to the Super Bowl. And obviously that didn't happen. Congrats to the Rams for winning the NFC, little resiliency, 2 weeks in a row, finding a way to claw their way back. And then obviously last week they found a way to hold on at the end. But I mean, what do you make of this game? Pretty amazing. We all assumed it would come down to the wire. It certainly did come down to the wire. And the Rams found a way to do it. Finally get to the Super Bowl. They accomplished the goal. Well, the goal is to win the Super Bowl. But I mean, when you get Matt Stafford at least making it to the Super Bowl, feels good. But job's not finished over there. What do you guys make of the NFC title and the Jimmy G era probably finally being over? I'm glad I probably won't have to watch him play in another meaningful NFC game probably ever. He probably, yeah, I mean, this is probably the last run of the conference championships for James Garoppolo. But how'd you guys feel coming off of the NFC title game? High drama in LA.
Yeah, I thought I was kind of surprised, honestly, that San Francisco took control and scored 17 unanswered after getting down 7-0. But I really credit the Rams defense, especially in the fourth quarter. You mentioned the clock mismanagement and challenge mismanagement by Sean McVay, and that's a very scary proposition to be trailing in the game and have no timeouts left against one of the most run dominant teams in the NFL. I mean, I don't think you could drum up a more perfect recipe for San Francisco than McVay wasting all of his challenges and timeouts and then still trailing at the time and having to, still create enough possessions to get his team in front without being able to stop the clock. So that was a very surprising thing to me. I know you and I mentioned there was one drive, I think early fourth quarter, where the Niners went 3 and out and only took 17 seconds off the clock. I mean, they didn't even attempt to run the ball. It was very surprising. I mean, I just thought at that point, why even, you're already in the lead. Why even put the game in Garoppolo's hands unless you're forced to? And they just couldn't get the running game going. I heard this morning that Deebo Samuel didn't have any touches in the final 12 minutes of regulation, and that's also concerning. So yeah, it's just a weird type of deal where Shanahan didn't really stay committed to the process and the formula that has been so successful these last few weeks. But big credit to the Rams defense because they did really start to stop the run. Elijah Mitchell was very inefficient on the ground. At one point, he had double-digit carries for under 20 yards. Don't know where he finished, but at one point it was like 10 carries for 19 yards or something to that effect. And so you got to credit those guys up front for the Rams, and they needed to earn their money. They're making so much money, and so they finally paid it off, and now they've really got to do the job in 2 weeks because they're going to be heavily favored in the trenches against the Cincinnati O-line. But that's a story for next week. But yeah, I just thought very impressive, resilient comeback by the Rams led by their defense. And I got to give Stafford his props. The numbers didn't always look good, but in the first half, he led the one touchdown drive, found Kupp in the end zone, and then he had 2 more balls that were probably going to be touchdowns. One to Cooper Kupp behind the defense that hit him right in the hands and he dropped it, and then the beautiful bomb to Skoranek in the end zone, and he pretty much showed that he shouldn't even be in the NFL with that effort. So Stafford, showed up, made some big time throws, and his final stat line could have honestly been a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give Stafford his credit. I have shit on Stafford for a while now. I don't know. We got John. He always hypes him up. He's in love with Matt Stafford. I mean, I'm not a huge Stafford guy. He's good. But yeah, I mean, he found a way 2 weeks in a row. Obviously, the touchdown to Cooper Kupp was the one in the corner of the end. And that was pretty beautiful throw, pinpoint right in between the defenders. But yeah, I mean, the man's a gamer, right? When he needs to find a way to get done, he does the job. And yeah, for that drive, it was 6 plays, no yards, 25 seconds or 23 seconds. They give the ball back to the Rams, and the Rams obviously they kick the field goal to go up 20-17, and the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, you hit it. They somehow, for some reason, Kyle Shanahan, he's very good at choking leads. He did it in the Super Bowl with his play calling against the Patriots and Tom Brady, the famous 28-3. But yeah, Deebo ended up 7 carries, 26 yards. Elijah Mitchell, 11 carries, 20 yards. Garoppolo had a scramble for 4, and Juszczyk had a carry. So, I mean, if you were to tell me going into this game that the Garoppolo would have more throws than they would find a way to run the ball, and they were up 17-7, I would be shocked. But you got to give credit to the Rams. As you said, they found a way in the trenches to go to war. I thought it was a huge play when they did the classic Trent Williams motion play where he runs across like a bulldozer, and they faked it up the middle to shut that play down, which is pretty much that's been a go-to for that 49ers offense for a minute now. That was a huge stop, and it was like, oh shit, like they're ready. and it kind of probably caught Kyle Shanahan by surprise. But Alex, you're riding the 49ers high, and we're at the end of that wagon. How do you feel coming off of yesterday? What did you see? Anything to add to what Blaine put down?
Yeah, I think y'all did a really good job hitting most of the points I wanted to talk about. Definitely sad my bandwagoning the Niners is over. I was definitely bandwagoning them hard. I was having a fun time. But yeah, y'all pretty much nailed it, right? That 3-and-out that took off no time kind of sealed it for me. That's when I felt like the Rams are going to win this game 100%. Because, like, there was, to me, questionable decisions coaching on both sides. You kind of hit it already, Blaine, with the timeout management and the challenge management for Sean McVay. I thought that was really poor. It didn't bite him in the ass, so good for them. Congrats to the Rams. And then, yeah, some of the Shanahan decisions, that 3-and-out, the no runs was really questionable to me. Mitchell was incredibly inefficient, like you said. I thought Mitchell and Ayuk were going to have big days. Brandon Ayuk showed up. Mitchell couldn't really get it going on the ground. But some of Kyle Shanahan's decisions, I didn't like the punt on 4th and 2. The Rams defense was playing really well, but it just felt like the game was kind of getting away from them at that point. I would have preferred if they just went for it. It is what it is. But at the same time, like, the Rams made mistakes, right? They missed a field goal. I believe the second or third drive of the game was that pick in the end zone. That was 10 points they left on the field in the first half. Because if they had those and they were executing on all fronts, so you would have had those points, and then the cup drop, and then the other long pass that you had brought up. If you have all those hitting, then the Rams kind of cakewalk to the Super Bowl, but it kept the Niners in it, right? And Shanahan had an opportunity. I thought he made poor play calling choices down the stretch, and that they just didn't perform well down the stretch. And when you need Jimmy Garoppolo, it doesn't turn out great, right? Like, I'm on the Niners train. I was in favor of Garoppolo. He made some throws, but like we all know, right, you don't really want the ball in his hands at the end. It's not going to turn out well. We saw what happened. But kudos to the Rams defense. They did a great job. They kept them in there. And 2 weeks in a row, right, the Rams made mistakes, but they executed really well down the stretch at the end when it matters most, which I think is very encouraging. I think the Rams, I mean, clearly they're the favorites on paper for the Super Bowl. We'll get into that later, but congrats to the Rams. Very disappointed with the Niners. But to the Trent Williams motion play, I'm glad you brought that up. Me and Brandon talked about that off the pod earlier. And like the fact that the Rams were eating that up and not going for those fakes at all really told me they were locked in. They're ready to go. They had to get that monkey off their back, being Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. Congrats to them. I know we haven't gotten there yet, but if I'm the Niners, I would still feel good, right? Ton of injuries. We got to the NFC Championship, and now you get to put in that young, hopefully stud. He's very talented. Who knows how it actually works out, but hopefully they can plug in the young quarterback and draft some damn corners, and then the Niners are still in business.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to just prefer, I mean, that's obviously on the docket. Yeah, I was just going to say, what do we make of the challenges? Is the booth job for the Rams for the Super Bowl, is that up on Indeed? Like, can I go and apply tonight? Because obviously they need some help up there. I mean, the two challenges weren't they weren't close, right? I mean, if anybody with a pair of eyeballs looks at those plays, I don't know how they have a guy in the booth who says, yeah, challenge that. I mean, he probably doesn't have a job today, to be honest. And he probably would have been fired last night if they did lose. And what do you make of that? It's kind of like, it felt almost like it's that all-in mentality. They went all in with the roster, and it's kind of like Sean McVay and I guess the booth, the guys up there are like, screw it. We have Matt Stafford. We trust him. We saw what he did last week at 40 seconds or even less against the Bucs, leading them down to kick the game-winning field goal. That it's like, we don't need the timeouts. We feel like if we get the ball back to Stafford, no matter the situation, we trust him. We trust Cooper Kupp against the secondary, Odell against the secondary, that we'll be able to work the ball without having those timeouts. So it's kind of like, to me, it felt sort of, after unwinding and thinking about it, it's like just that all-in mentality. I don't think it's smart. I thought it was still stupid, but that's kind of what it felt like. It felt they trust Stafford regardless of how many timeouts, clock, and anything, to be smart enough to get them down the field. Regardless. And obviously they did not need the timeouts. They find a way to do it. Jimmy G helps them out. But yeah, that's there. And I guess, yeah, we can jump right into straight up with the Niners. I mean, where do they go from here, obviously another NFC title game, obviously not making the Super Bowl, disappointing. They still got the good defense, at least up front. The linebackers are nice. The front four is pretty damn good. They'll get Javon Kinlaw back next year as well. He missed the whole year, I want to say, Achilles or ACL, one of those two, where he missed the rest of the year. So he was out. But I mean, is it as easy as just plug in Trey Lance and bang, we're back in the NFC title game, or at least we're at the top of the line? Like, do we know that Trey Lance is actually like he's going to be the guy for sure? Like, he's legit. I mean, he has all the tools, right? He can move. He has the arm. I like the attributes, but I mean, are we trusting just him to come in next year and be bang? They're right back in this thing, because it's interesting that maybe if he was really, really, really that guy, he could have kind of snuck in. And when Jimmy wanted to give up that job this year at times, that Trey Lance could have snuck in and stole that if Kyle Shanahan felt that he was supremely, ready to go and was looking at. I mean, what do they do with this roster? I think the biggest thing is they need secondary help, and getting rid of Jimmy G's contract. That's like 27 million, 26 million will free up money, obviously, with Lance on the rookie deal, where they can go spend on some corners. They need to get some secondary help big time. It was evident. And obviously in that division, when you're going to face Cooper Kupp, we don't know if Odell will be there next year, but you got to face DK Metcalf. You got to face Tyler Lockett. Obviously if Russell Wilson's still there. And then you still got to face those guys in the desert too, right? They got Christian Kirk, they got DeAndre Hopkins. So there's weapons all around that division. Where did the 49ers go from here?
Yeah, I think, it is difficult to say, yeah, you just plug in the quarterback and you guys will be fine. But the caveat for me is the quarterback he's replacing is not some huge, bar to hurdle for him. And so, yeah, I agree with the secondary for sure. But to think that they got to the NFC Championship game and had a 10-point lead with a deficient quarterback and a deficient secondary makes me think, yeah, they're just a couple tweaks away. Now, obviously, they were not some world beaters. They just went on a run. They started the season 3-5. So it's not like, oh yeah, put Trey Lance in, get some secondary help, and you're in the Super Bowl. No, each year is its own year. But for me on the surface, can Trey Lance simply do what you asked Jimmy G to do, which was basically nothing, hand the ball off and make some play action throws? Yeah. For me, the answer is yes. He's a better running threat. We already know that running scheme is, more than a handful to deal with. And so you add that running element, you have the mobility, you can do some more things by rolling the pocket, moving the quarterback, off of a stationary platform. And Lance is younger. He's got a stronger arm. For me, the only thing is, you talk about there was a couple times he was able to get in the game, and I think he had one start against maybe the Cardinals this year. The thing for me is he was always handicapped because he was never given the full attention of, you're going to be the guy and we're going to get you ready to be the guy. And I think that changes, and that burden comes off of the coaching staff and Lance himself as soon as Jimmy G is no longer on the roster. When you fully dedicate all your resources to getting that guy ready to play, and I don't mean getting him ready to play one game and then being told you're going back to the bench, or getting ready to say, oh, if we get in this certain situation and we need 1 yard, we're going to put you out there and we're going to do some sort of zone read look. I don't mean that. I mean, when he is not handicapped at all and the coaching staff is giving him the full attention, he has the keys, he knows it's his team, everything he does week in, week out, all the reps, all the film, the game plan being solely dedicated to him and not a Jimmy G offense, but hey, we're going to insert you. When all those things are rendered irrelevant and he can just go out and be the guy and be given all of the keys to the vehicle and run that whole operation, I think that drastically changes how he's going to perform.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Any take from you, Alex, on what the Niners need to do going forward? Or is it just as simple as Trey Lance is in and they'll be back in the NFC title game next year?
Yeah, so we all agree on improving the secondary, right? But like the Trey Lance thing, I think Blaine hit it right. So he has all the weapons and the tools. It's about how fast can he get acclimated to the offense, but like at an extremely efficient level, and how well is he going to truly know it? Because an NFL offense is obviously complicated, and Kyle Shanahan's run schemes get a little more complicated with all the pre-snap motion, because you need to have everything in line and super clean if you're going to do all that pre-snap motion, because the pre-snap motion is a double-edged sword, right? Easily turns into flags and can be a negative if you're not doing it correctly. So to me, it's about Trey Lance's ability to process the information really fast and at a high level, because he has all the physical attributes and traits, right? He's going to be able to make all the throws Jimmy G was doing. And just the fact that he has the mobility with his legs adds just something else to this offense as well, because Jimmy G has no mobility. So if we can get Trey Lance to the point, if Shanahan and that coaching staff can get him to understand the offense to a T, right, and run it really smoothly, then yeah, the sky's the limit offensively, right? But that's under the assumption that the weapons stay healthy, the line stays healthy, everything else is clicking, right? But like in theory, all the tools are there. To me, it's about the repetition and the reps. And then now he's going to be that guy. Hopefully we're operating under the assumption that Jimmy G is gone, right? But like operating under that assumption of Trey being that guy, it's all about the repetition, the reps, and like just getting a full understanding of that offense and like really being able to run it well, because the fact that they're here and in this position, a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, it makes you very excited for the thought or the idea of plugging in Trey Lance if it all goes smoothly. But like, he has the physical tools, and to me, it's all about the ability to process the information and get that offense just running smoothly at a high level.
Yeah, for sure. He has everything. I definitely think they need to aggressively try to get a secondary piece. I don't know if they're going to bring Jason Verrett back off another injury, but I mean, we saw that secondary just get toasted. I don't know if you want Jimmy Ward, who's primarily, I believe he lines up at safety most of the time, being your top cover guy, right? You definitely don't want to trot out Josh Norman, who played out there at times. So I think they definitely need to attack corner. I don't know. It's just concerning with me with Trey Lance. I would have probably, if I'm 49ers brasses, I would have gave him the keys this year, because now you're relying on a guy who's played two football games in, this will be what, 3 years he played, or 2 years at least. He played one game in North Dakota State to finish up the COVID year, and then obviously sat out, and then he was in the one game this year. So you're now, it's more, he's going to get I have no doubt that he'll be able to pick up the information, right? Kyle Shanahan's he's a smart guy. Trey Lance seems like a smart kid. If they traded all those picks up, they're a good front office. John Lynch is a smart guy as well to take him. There's no doubt that he can process the information and get all that down. But it's for me, it's game speed, right? You see teams like the Patriots who went out and said, yeah, we're just going to run Mac Jones out this year. Whatever happens, happens. But we're going to get him the reps, right? We're going to let him see NFL game speed for 18 weeks. Or 17 ball games, 18, they went to the playoffs, and just kind of see what that speed looks like, right? Because it's going to be a lot different from North Dakota State. It's going to be a lot different from the practices, the offseason work, and just getting those reps this season, I think would have been very vital going forward, right? It really would have set them up to get some secondary pieces. And I would immediately probably, I mean, they'd have to be up at the top next year if he was able to get those reps. Now it's kind of like that question mark, right? He's coming off of 2 games in 3 years. What he's going to look like when he's actually given the full reins. Is he going to be able to process the reads fast enough on the field? So for me, it's really just a game speed thing. How quickly can he adjust to the game speed of the NFL when that regular season week 1 hits? Because Jimmy G's gone. Like, he's already gone. I'll tell you that. Like, I'm excited though. Like, I definitely, if he's good, it's going to be fun, right? Then we have a guy in the NFC. Like, we have all the stat quarterbacks in the AFC, and now you give me Trey Lance in the NFC doing his thing. Like, the league's in good hands going forward, but I'm interested to just see how quickly he can pick up the reads and just get acclimated to the offense and figure out the NFL game going into next year, because it's going to be a vital part of their success. Because Jimmy G wasn't great, but I mean, he's good at hitting 2-yard passes and handing the ball off, right? So I don't know. Somehow he finds a way to luck into wins and find himself in these situations out of the blue. But I mean, if you're the 49ers, you got to be excited. You're finally cashing in on the guy that you traded all those first round picks for. And it should be an exciting time, although they came up short in this game. It's like it could be a blessing in disguise, right? If Trey Lance is that good as he's billed to be. Anything left on this kind of NFC Championship game before we kind of dive into some Brady? Did he retire? Did he not retire? I guess we can just jump in. There's nothing really left to unpack in the NFC title game. We can just jump through some topics. Obviously, the Tom Brady news over the weekend. Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington like to jump the gun. They fired out a report I thought it was kind of disrespectful to the conference title games. It actually was completely disrespectful to the conference title games because you just take away the shine, right? All Sunday morning, it's nothing but Tom Brady, top 12. Is he done? He's done. All this stuff, GOAT stuff. And it's like, Tom Brady, as big as many people might think he's an asshole, like, I don't think he knows how special it is for these guys taking the field yesterday, how special it was for them to get there. Because, I mean, not everybody is as lucky as he was in his career to kind of, it's a yearly thing where he's there. So he didn't want to do that, obviously, because nothing came out on his end. Even his family, they adamantly denied it. Tom denied it. He spoke with the GM of the Bucs, said, I have not made any decision. So what do you guys kind of make of that news breaking? I want to say it was Saturday? It was Saturday, Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday when the news that Tom Brady was going to hang it up. And now I'm sitting back and I'm like, I hope he comes back. Like, I hope he comes back. It says one big F you to Adam Schefter, gets him suspended and gets Darlington fired, and says these two clowns were wrong. I'm coming back for one more run. But what do you guys make of the Brady news?
Well, first off, I do agree with you there. We kind of joked about that, but there would be nothing more epic than him playing another year simply to spite somebody. It could have been an accurate report where, it did leak from a family member or something, and he was planning on it, but just because that happened, he's like, no, what's another 12 more months? So I definitely agree there. The interesting thing about the Schefter part, when this broke, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, early afternoon, depending on where you live, the interesting part was that you asked me as soon as the report got refuted. I believe the first person to refute it was the agent, and then his dad came out and had a statement that said no, he hasn't made a decision. And you asked me, like, within an hour of the report, like, wow, does that get Schefter suspended? And the irony is, ESPN did the opposite. Instead of doing like the Woj thing where they say, hey, don't leak this, hey, don't say the draft picks, hey, we're going to suspend you if you do this, they did the opposite. They almost emboldened him, because within an hour it took over every ESPN channel. They had all their pundits coming on giving their favorite Tom Brady stories. Like, rather than saying, you know what, he came out and he said it's not accurate as of today, they completely emboldened Schefter by saying, no, we're running this, we're breaking into every coverage on all of our channels, and we're just going to let this run rampant and just hype it and put gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of it, Alex? The Tom Brady news, and do you think there's a chance he says screw you, Schefter, and returns next year for one more?
I'm right there with y'all. And I think it says a lot about like how ESPN's ran and just like the culture of like first and just like the hot takes and like being first on things is more important, because like Blaine said, they emboldened him and it was front page on every story. The only thing that really tripped me up was the fact that TB12, like his company, put out a retirement statement on Twitter. That's the only one that was a little strange to me, because I figured his company would know as well, like firsthand. But at this point, I hope Tom plays one more season. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. I did see that, but that got deleted within like a minute. So some social media intern probably got fired for posting that, if we're being honest. I mean, I'd imagine they had it in the drafts because obviously it's on the table. I mean, when you hear him last week on his podcast saying, it's family time, I'll know when to hang it up. I want to be a father. I want to be a good husband. Yeah, but I mean, we kind of knew how ESPN operates. Like, I shouldn't have worded it then. Like, are they going to fire Schefter now? Because no, ESPN was like, shit, we beat Rappaport, we beat NFL Network.
Right.
This is our story. Like, this is us, right? Like, nobody else can take credit for this. We did it. So I expected them to do it. But say you turn the clock in this week, I'm assuming we're going to hear news this week officially, whether it's one way or the other. Like, if Tom comes back, does Adam Schefter get fired? Because now they look like dumbasses, right? If Tom comes back and ESPN looks like complete dumbasses and they got the fake report and he's back and he's laughing at the world, or laughing at least at Darlington and Schefter. I'm pretty sure Darlington's the guy that that's Wickersham. That's not Darlington. Never mind. That's the guy that wrote the book that's like basically the Brian Windhorst of Tom Brady. But yeah, never mind. But yeah, do you think I shouldn't have worded it then about him being suspended, but say run it back in this week, Wednesday, he says, I'm coming back. You guys were wrong. Does Schefter get fired, or not fired, suspended then? Do you think they tell him they take a week off? I don't know. Come back. You can come back for Saturday Super Bowl coverage.
I think you almost have to. I mean, do we want to be like TMZ of sports, or do we want to like maintain some level of professionalism and journalistic integrity? If you have any journalistic integrity, at the heart of journalism is accuracy, and you can't just like run a bombshell story that ended up being completely false.
That's what I'm saying. A bombshell story about the GOAT, like about Tom Brady, like something that you knew, like it got like 200,000 retweets, like it had 100,000, it broke Twitter. Like when you would look at it, it said 100,000, you click on it, it says 50K. Like that tweet broke Twitter, right? Nobody saw it coming that fast, right? We assumed it would be this week when anything leaks because of the conference title games. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's integrity, it's accuracy. That's journalism at a whole. And if they come back this week and they just completely whiff, I don't see how both guys don't get suspended. I wouldn't be surprised otherwise, but I mean, they've suspended Woj before, so I think you would have to do the same to Schefter at least, right? Or Woj is probably sitting back like, what the hell? These guys just get to say whatever. Like I'm about to start saying, I'm going to go on right now and say LeBron's not coming back. He's out for the year with knee soreness. Like you might as well just go on and say whatever. But yeah, I mean, I hope he comes back. I really do. Just to spite these guys for coming out and trying to be the first. But I wouldn't be surprised either way at this point.
And I'll say this: if they don't suspend Schefter or don't do anything about it, like there's already ESPN of the journalistic integrity and getting the facts right. Like that has dropped drastically in a lot of people's minds already. Like the respect for ESPN there, because you turn it on, it's mainly debate shows and hot takes. And I think if that story is completely wrong and they just left Schefter slide or in that, then it's like a precedent set, and the company's like perception in people's minds will drop drastically even lower because they're already fighting an uphill battle.
Sure. And I'd imagine the NFL is pretty pissed, obviously, because they took a little bit of light from their title games. I mean, the NFL, if they're completely wrong, the NFL, who obviously they have Monday Night Football on ESPN's, I mean, they might want some action taken, right? It's their league. So, yeah, I think they would have to. But, I mean, we'll see, man. Tom's going to keep us all on edge. Hopefully he gives us something this week. Obviously, he's a smart guy. He has to at least make it to the fourth to cash in on a $15 million bonus in his contract. I think 15 of his 20 million guaranteed enters his bank account on the 4th of February. So he's a smart guy, right? He's a smart businessman.
Yeah, and I saw that. So I figured it would come post February 4th at the earliest, but who knows? I'll say this: if Tom does retire, all of a sudden the offseason is a little more interesting in that there's also a quarterback spot in Tampa Bay that's now intriguing. But we'll see.
For sure. I mean, he can do it whenever, to be honest, because it's like him saying on Twitter, I retire, and then it being followed to the league office, right? There are two different things. Because I mean, from a Buck standpoint, he has to be off the roster. I think it's post June 2nd or they get smoked with a cap hit. So it's like, it's two separate things. Like I assume he'll get his money regardless. He could say it right now and he would end up somehow getting his money. But it's definitely an interesting thing to sit back and look at going into this week. Hopefully Schefter's wrong. Let's keep it moving. How about the Raiders? We got those. They go full New England. They go with, I believe it was, what's his name? Dave Ziegler, I want to say it is. He's like the de facto GM, was the de facto GM of the New England Patriots. The Raiders first grab him. And then they have like 6 different dinners with Josh McDaniels. He wows them talking about his 2 tight end sets for Foster Moreau and Darren Waller, even though he had 2 tight ends this year in New England. And I think it was like 27th in usage rate of both of those guys. So I don't know how I don't know. I guess Mark Davis, he doesn't look at the stats, right? When he just listens to a guy talk. But I mean, they got their head coach, they got their GM combo. They go with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler from New England. Not a bad tree to pick from. Although, I mean, we've seen in the past, the Belichick tree hasn't really turned out great, right? Matt Patricia, flop. Brian Flores, he had some success, but he could never find the right coordinator. Obviously, what he said to Tua about I should have drafted Mac Jones. That's not a good look, but I mean that Belichick tree hasn't always been great. But what do you make of the Raiders going with Josh McDaniels? I was honestly a big fan of Rich Bisaccia getting another shot, considering he drugged that team out of the depths of hell and made it to the playoffs this year when the season could have completely collapsed and they could have been a top 5 pick. But what do you make of the Raiders going with Josh McDaniels? We'll go with you, Alex.
I was with you and thinking I wanted to give Rich another shot, right? Because the last coach that did that for the Raiders got another shot. I believe it was Jack Del Rio. But I mean, the turmoil that surrounded the Las Vegas Raiders this year and the fact that they were playing on wild card weekend, barely lost. It came down to the last play against a team that won the AFC, is now representing the AFC. I don't know. I thought he deserved a shot. You saw how the team fought for him. I think it was Zay Jones on the sideline, that clip, like, proud of you, keep working hard. And it was like the same energy returned. I don't know. I thought it was it seemed like a positive culture outside looking in. I would have given that another shot. But I like Josh McDaniels. I know it doesn't always go well poaching from the Belichick tree, but I think Josh McDaniels will be an exception. He definitely has characteristics of Bill Belichick that he takes, but he knows how to win football games. He knows what to do. I think he'll actually have that team set up really, really well. And I think that team's going to do better than most people think. Yes, they're coming off a wild card performance, but I don't know if they earned a lot of public faith, if that makes sense. Like, I would assume that that the public would still be betting against the Raiders next year. But I think they're on the up and up. I like McDaniels. I think they're going to build on what this last season was.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be interested to see what he can do. Obviously, do you think he'll cheat? Obviously, that podcast
There it is. Yeah.
that he showed us where DJ Williams said that they were cheating hard when they were 6-0 in Denver. McDaniels gets fired. They finish 8-8. And and then DJ Williams said, I knew we were not that good. We was cheating. So do you think he'll bring some cheating to the desert?
Yeah, I think he will. I kind of hinted at that when I said he takes some things from Bill Belichick. That's what I was getting at, like the Spygate stuff. He had the mini Spygate in Denver. And if y'all don't believe us, you can search DJ Williams talking about Josh McDaniels. It's on the record for people to hear. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of that stuff in Las Vegas now.
Facts. What do you make of the McDaniels hire, Blaine?
Yeah, I'm interested in it just from a divisional standpoint. I think all three of us would agree that moving forward, the most exciting futures in that division are Kansas City and the Los Angeles Chargers. So, it's weird because the Raiders got into the playoffs and finished second this year ahead of the Chargers. But it seems like moving forward, they could be the basement dwellers of that division. I really think Nathaniel Hackett's going to get a quarterback. And we know how good and young and talented the Broncos roster is. They just need the most important position in the NFL, which is quarterback. And if they can get that, then you got to believe they're going to be challenging the Chargers for runner-up to the Chiefs' kingdom out there in Kansas City. So I'm interested in it for that reason. Josh McDaniels strikes me as the competitive guy. And like, he waited many years and turned down many, many job opportunities to stay in New England. So you got to imagine when he finally took one, he thinks it's set up for success. You don't want to go 5-12, 6-11, and then the Raiders are looking for a coach again. So I'm interested just from that standpoint, what his vision is, what he pitched to the Raiders in those interviews, because he obviously didn't take the job expecting to, finish last 2 or 3 years in a row and then dip out. I mean, you don't leave for that. So I'm excited for the new era and to see what he can bring to the desert. I know that's a really good franchise in terms of national following, fan base. You're obviously in a market to yourselves. I mean, you got the hockey team and you got the WNBA and all that, but I mean, the Raiders kind of reign supreme in Las Vegas right now. So it's interesting to me. He must have some grand master plan for that franchise, but I'm just not sure. Outside looking in, it doesn't look like they're going to be challenging for many AFC West crowns. And then it was funny, you brought up the Belichick coaching tree, and honestly, you did the Belichick coaching tree some favors by mentioning some guys with moderate success. We could get into the failed Eric Mangini's, the Bill O'Brien shit show down in Houston, Romeo Crennel. We could go back to Charlie Weiss. I mean, it's really not good for the Belichick tree.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, Bill O'Brien, it ended bad. I'd say it got bad when he got control. He really wasn't like, I mean, he kind of was doing his thing as just the head coach, but then the second he got a little bit of GM control, I mean, we saw what he did to that roster. But yeah, the Belichick.
He crushed that franchise. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I could not stand the Bill O'Brien GM moves for Houston because, like, I live in Texas and I got a lot of Houston Texans friends, and I felt for him because I was trying to explain to him, like, Bill O'Brien's going to crush y'all, and then here we are.
Yeah, I mean that's why you got to have smart ownership, right? I mean, smart owners, they don't allow that type of stuff to happen, right? Because him just as a head football coach, I mean, he had them in the playoffs a couple of years doing their thing. Then when you give a guy a little too much power, and he's even admitted it years past when he kind of is in the NFL pool now as a OC at Alabama, that it kind of went south when he got the control, and he probably should have not had that control. So I mean, it's respect on that end that a guy can say, "Hey, I messed up." And I probably shouldn't have had that level of control of a roster. But then at the end of the day, it's an ownership thing, right? They make the call and say, sure, we'll give you that spot. But I mean, to not continue down the Bill O'Brien thing, yeah, the Belichick tree hasn't been great. I just wonder what it means for Derek Carr if Josh McDaniels sees Derek Carr as kind of the guy that he's going to run his scheme. As I said, with those dinners I saw on Twitter, multiple guys said that he really pitched heavy on the two tight ends thing. So I'm interested to see how that works. He said a lot of two tight ends and a heavy workload for Josh Jacobs. That kind of works. Josh Jacobs is a good bruiser, but I'm just interested to see the whole two tight ends thing since they specifically the Patriots this offseason went out, spent big money on two tight ends and kind of phased Jonnu Smith out. And obviously Hunter Henry was good, but I mean, they didn't run a lot of two tight end stuff, right? I think they were their two tight end sets, if I saw on Twitter correctly, it was like 27th in the league, right? So it wasn't exactly what you're pitching to Mark Davis, but hey, it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, you mentioned Denver. So I mean, who do you think Denver, we might as well, before something stupid happens, who does Denver go and get at quarterback? Like everybody, obviously the hot look is Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, if you're at Aaron Rodgers, do you really want to play Patrick Mahomes twice? Do you really want to play Justin Herbert twice? Do you want to have to go through Joe Burrow? Do you want to have to go through Josh Allen? Do you want to have to play Patrick Mahomes probably a third time if you want to even go to the Super Bowl? Like, I don't think Denver, it sounds great, but I don't really think if he couldn't do it with this roster in Green Bay this year, where it was kind of set up to do it, what could he do differently in Denver? But I mean, if there's other options, who do you think Denver and Nathaniel Hackett, John Elway, and those guys end up with at quarterback heading into next year? Obviously, they're going to do something.
Well, I think it depends on what Alex mentioned a second ago, which was, we may have this very appealing option down in Tampa Bay opening up. And for some teams and for some quarterbacks who are, thinking about forcing their way to certain destinations, that may rise to the top of the list. So I think that's an important caveat. And then other than that, I mean, you got to look at an NFC team who's willing to send their quarterback out. They're not going to send them within the conference. So for me, it just goes back to Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, which has kind of been the two names linked to Denver for some time now. And I don't know. I'm kind of, sometimes when there's too much smoke, hypothetical smoke, there's not really fire. And to me, all this odds and all this, they're the favorite to get Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Denver is now, plus 110. They have better odds than Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers to be on the roster week one. I'm kind of not buying that. Rodgers is already on the Green Bay roster and he's already under contract. So Green Bay could do nothing and he's on Green Bay's roster week one unless he just retires. So for me, I'm kind of intrigued by the Russell Wilson dilemma. Me and you, Brandon, we both thought that this was the end of the Wilson Carroll era, but it seems like Carroll is charging full steam ahead. So if I'm Russell Wilson, my number one destination at this point is getting to Tampa. And my number two destination in terms of winning, we're talking about here. We're not talking about Sierra controlling where he goes and where he lives.
I was about to ask that.
But in terms of where Russell wants to compete on the football field for rings, it's got to be Tampa number one and Denver number two. I mean, if he just wants to go, live the celebrity life and be controlled by Sierra, then yeah, just go to the Giants and just waste away in misery and call it a career in 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on the whole Aaron Rodgers thing as well. I think I saw Bovada had the Denver Broncos minus 165 to have Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback week one. And I was like, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I just don't see it, right? They lost the playoff game and he stuck around in Green Bay for another couple days, right? If he was actually out, right, he's on the first jet out of there. He does his little fist pump to the crowd, says his rebuilding thing, and he's in California in 3 hours, right? He doesn't just hang out in Green Bay, but just to hear that he hung out after the loss to San Fran, stuck around, met with the GM, met with the owner, and it seems like they kind of worked to formulate a plan. Obviously, they're another team that has to get really shifty with the cap situation with Aaron Rodgers at 46 million. They're going to have to find a way to get Devontae Adams back there. Obviously, that's a top priority for Aaron Rodgers. I'd imagine so they're going to be interesting. But yeah, I don't buy the big whole Aaron Rodgers to Denver, and I don't even think it's that smart of a decision if you're Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're solely, I guess you're wanting to go there if you really, really, really don't want to play another football game in Green Bay. But I mean, if Tom Brady actually does retire, you're kind of looking, you then look at the NFC. If you say that Russell Wilson gets controlled and goes to the Giants, Sierra wants in New York, she wants to be in New York. I mean, it's really, what are you worrying about if you're Aaron Rodgers? You have to battle with Matt Stafford, and that roster is going to get expensive, obviously, with the pieces. We don't know if Odell will be back in LA and those guys. So it's like the NFC is kind of there. I don't know if the AFC is really the move if you're a 38, 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers to kind of plant your new foot and try to make a run with Nathaniel Hackett. But I know, Alex, you have some stuff, so we'll give you the floor before we kind of wrap this thing up.
I think I pretty much nailed it with Aaron Rodgers, right? Because Denver's roster is clearly good enough if you add Aaron Rodgers that they could get it done. They could win the Super Bowl in the AFC, but it's a much tougher path. And it's not even close, right? The AFC is going to be much tougher than the NFC. So, like, it does make sense, but not a ton of sense. I think there's still better options. And then just to the point of where do I think he's actually going to go? I gave up on trying to read Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't know what that guy's going to do. Yeah, he stayed in Green Bay, but Aaron's kind of a strange dude, right? I don't know. He likes to just, spend his time on Reddit and YouTube just reading shit. I don't know what to make of Aaron Rodgers. I will say this about the free agency period. Everything's at a standstill until Tom Brady, one, makes his decision, and two, wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, because those are going to hold up everything. It reminds me when Denver was courting Peyton Manning out of Indianapolis and he was a free agent. All of free agency was basically on pause until we knew where Peyton Manning was going. And I feel the same is kind of here with Tom and Aaron. But who knows where Aaron goes? He's a strange dude. I sincerely doubt he retires, but I wouldn't even be surprised if he just retired.
See, I will be shocked if he retires, but I mean, it's whole different than the Peyton thing, right? Because Aaron Rodgers is not a free agent, as Blaine mentioned. So the Packers can simply say, they could say, fuck you, and you just sit there, and now you can actually retire, right? They just say, we're not moving you. We don't care. If you want to retire, you can retire, but we want you back. Kind of the same thing they did this year, right? He really wanted to force his way out. He almost wanted to go to San Fran, I think, draft time, and that got nixed, where he wanted to go to San Fran. That gets shut down, and he's like, damn, yeah, they're kind of, it seems like Green Bay's front office isn't playing into the hardball that Aaron Rodgers tries to do. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, kind of realized that as this year went on. I think kind of the tension in the room, if you'd say, I think it kind of dwelled a little bit. It went down. So, I mean, I fully expect Aaron Rodgers to be wearing a Green Bay Packers uniform for at least another year. Like, I don't think he'll play in another jersey, if I'm being honest. Maybe I'll be completely wrong in a week. But I don't think, he also said he's not going to drag this thing out. So, I mean, we could see it post Super Bowl, knowing what's going to happen. And obviously Tom Brady, we could find out as soon as this week what's going on with him. But yeah, it'll be interesting if Russell Wilson somehow gets to Denver, and if he goes to Tampa Bay, if that's even an option on the table. I don't know how Tampa Bay could do it cap wise, because I know Tom's leaving a fat cap hit on them. He seems to somehow, his agent sets those contracts up. I don't know how, like he did it with New England, left like a fat 20 million hit on their cap sheet when he went to Tampa Bay. But it'll be interesting to see what Russell Wilson does if he really wants to run it back. The Seahawks say they have no intentions to trade Russ. So could we see another game of hardball? Could we see him hold out of camp in Seattle, try to force his way? I don't know if Russell Wilson's kind of going to be that type of guy. He doesn't come off as that type of guy. But I mean, if Sierra wants New York, he could become that type of guy, right?
The only thing with me and Russell is like, I think it'd be crazy if Russell agrees to just go into another season with Pete Carroll. I just don't see it happening.
No, yeah, I think it'd be nuts as well. So it's definitely, if anybody's going to move, like it's got to be him, right? It's got to be, I would say he's more likely to move regardless of where it is. I mean, I could very easily see the Giants doing it, right? Get Brian Dable a quarterback, get him Russell Wilson, and let him work. I don't know. The Giants seem, but it's also not Dave Gettleman anymore either. So it's like, will they actually pull the trigger? Because you're probably giving up what they have 6 and 7. Like you think it would take pick 6, obviously, or maybe they give one of the first and give some future firsts and some seconds, maybe a player. Like I don't know what that package. It'll be wild if we see it come across the headlines sometime this offseason of the package that somebody, if anybody, gives to get Russell Wilson. I just don't think Tampa Bay. I mean, if you're looking at Tampa Bay, even if he wanted to go there, does Tampa Bay have enough value to wow without taking away from the roster? They're kind of in a situation trying to get a quarterback that like Pittsburgh's in, where you're getting into, you don't really have that much value pick wise compared to teams like the Giants or even Denver, that you start to have to dig into the roster, right? And when you have to start taking away from the roster, it's like is the quarterback, does he really want to go there? If you're subtracting, you're doing addition by subtraction, right? So I think it'll be fun to see with these guys though.
You could always just settle for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, you could.
One of those better teams is going to, right? Because I was going to ask that earlier. He'll end up in a Washington or Pittsburgh, somewhere where he'll be serviceable, Like
the more I think about it, I don't think Pittsburgh's that dumb. They're pretty smart. Like they're dumb enough to run it back.
It feels more like
Rudolph and
Washington.
Haskins. I don't even, it feels like Washington. It feels like a Matt Rule move to me, if I'm being honest. Like if I had to break one team right now that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play for next year, it's going to be Carolina. Matt Rule's on the brink. Like he arguably could have got fired. They were chanting fire Matt Rule at the end of the season. He ran a 2 QB scheme in the NFL last year to end the year. Pretty embarrassing stuff. He's just under the heat, right? I mean, he signed that huge deal. And their owner, David Tepper, doesn't play around, right? He's going to say, go get somebody. And they're going to look at, the thing that everybody hates about Jimmy D is, and that's exactly what Matt Rule is going to bring to the table. He's going to say, look at what happens when he plays for the 49ers. They win ball games, and he could do that for us. He's going to get suckered into that. And I just think that's one team. They're more desperate in my eyes than Washington would be. Matt Rule has to do something, right? Like his job is hanging in the balance.
Remember, the dominoes are going to be interesting to see how they fall. Same thing with this coaching carousel, how it was really a slow hiring process, and still so many of these teams haven't even filled their head coaching vacancies. But the quarterback is going to be, I don't know, it's just going to be such a wild little game to play, because then you have moving pieces. Like we have the big names. We have, what does Rodgers do? What does Brady do? What does Russell Wilson do? And then you have these like tertiary pieces like Garoppolo. Where does he end up after the bigger dominoes fall? Who then falls on their best option being Jameis Winston? Because that's going to be somebody's best option at some point, and it gets dwindled down. And then, you start looking at guys that you don't even want starting for you are going to be starting for you if you take too long.
Facts. That is 100%. Just one team before we kind of wrap this up that could be interesting. I don't even think they have a shot, but Aaron Rodgers on the Colts, how would that look? You take Wentz out, you put Rodgers on the Colts, that O-line, Jonathan Taylor, Pittman, obviously that defense was playing pretty good football. That could be a pretty intriguing. I don't even think it's a remote possibility, but what would you make of that?
Well, I mean, I've never even thought about that, but you got to assume they win the AFC South and would be right there in the picture to win the AFC. But like you said, it just doesn't seem very feasible. It'd be fun on paper. Like that's a damn good roster to plug in Aaron Rodgers to.
Facts. That's a good one. They'd be able to get off of Carson Wentz. I think they'd eat 13 mil. They'd eat like something, but that would be super interesting. Shout out Josh McDaniels for actually showing up to the interview. Do you think Harbaugh takes a job? One more thing. Do you think Harbaugh takes the Vikings job or the Dolphins job? I heard that he's gonna tell the Michigan guys he's going to Miami, and obviously I think he interviewed with Minnesota. Do you think he actually makes the leap? It kind of seems like a couple weeks ago it seemed like dang, like he's going on the recruiting trail, but now it's like it's kind of getting dicey. Like it feels like he's getting the itch, and that he might actually come back to the NFL.
I just don't like his fits with modern day NFL offenses. I already told you I would hate if he went to the Vikings. I would hate to see Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, and Irv Smith Jr. and that nice, really young core that they have be sent back to like 1982 wishbone offense. I would just hate to see that. And then for Tua, yeah, you could say, well, yeah, it helps Tua because it gives him a run game and he's not asked to do so much. But if you drafted Tua, you didn't draft Tua to just be like a Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that Harbaugh going to Miami makes more sense philosophically, but I don't think it like wows the fan base or gets Tua any better than he currently is, because you're not going to be asking him to do much. You're going to be asking him to do the same thing the Michigan quarterbacks did this year, which is turn around and hand the ball off and like hope you guys can win a bunch of 24-20 games.
But do you think he will take a job in the NFL?
I'll say Miami if it's offered. Obviously, it's all contingent upon ownership extending the offer. I don't think Minnesota offers with the new GM, but it's weird because the whole tie there was that they said that this GM was like some pro scout or player personnel guy when Harbaugh was with San Francisco. So relationships are always weird, and that's why like black coaches and Hispanic coaches never get hired, because all these rich white owners already have the relationships in place. But this one's weird because it's a minority GM with Minnesota, and you would think that he, would not want to go back in time and would want to keep being progressive. But just based off this supposed relationship they have, I could see Harbaugh taking one of those jobs. So I'll just say yes. If you put the gun to my head, yes, he's going to be an NFL coach next year.
Facts. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, I was on board with Harbaugh getting a head coaching job. His offense needs to be more modern, no doubt about that. The players did not love playing for him in San Francisco. He had success, and I think that's what owners look at. And yeah, like Blaine said, the relationships are weird. I think he will be a coach. And just to the point of relationships being weird about black and Hispanic coaches, Jim Caldwell should still be a head coach in the league, and he should get an offer. He probably won't, but I'm still on that Jim Caldwell train. He's a very good coach.
Yeah, I agree. Jim Caldwell should be the coach of the Bears, to be honest, if we're being real. Like, I thought it was a slam dunk. Ryan Poles, who is African-American, I believe. Yeah. When I watched his press conference today, I thought he'd for sure go with Jim Caldwell, offensive mind, or roll with Justin Fields. They didn't do that. I guess one more. These kind of tidbits keep coming up in my mind as this thing kind of rolls on and rolls on. Are you surprised Eric Bieniemy is not? I don't think he's gotten a single interview this year. Hot candidate last year. I don't know if he's kind of taken himself off the market, but it's surprising that his name hasn't even drummed up at all. That he hasn't. I haven't heard of him getting a single call, interview, request, anything.
Yeah, he interviewed with the Broncos, and that's the only one that I know about. He was one of the 10 candidates who got an initial interview with the Broncos. That was never going to happen, especially here in this market, because of some things that transpired when he was a player at the University of Colorado. People can read about those allegations if they wish. So that'll definitely never happen in this market, just because people have long memories. But I am surprised that he has not been hired as a head coach somewhere in the past 3 coaching cycles. And now it feels like maybe time has just passed him by. I don't mean time has passed him by in terms of his age. He's still a young guy. I just mean, he's not the hot name anymore. And maybe he just missed the boat these last three coaching cycles.
For sure. But yeah, Alex, are you surprised that Eric Bieniemy's name? Obviously, I've completely forgot about his interview with Denver. He did there because of the Colorado connection. But are you surprised Bieniemy hasn't garnered more interest from any of these teams?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I would say I'm disappointed because it's the NFL, right? And there's rich white old owners, and they have a certain way of thinking, and they feel a certain way. And we've seen them pass up qualified candidates in the past, and they will continue to do that. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised. I'm more disappointed with it. He probably deserves a shot at this point, but I think Blaine nailed it. Times he's not like the hot commodity right now. And then the Chiefs offense struggled at times. And I think a lot of these owners looked for excuses to not hire him the last couple of years. And if they felt that way, I don't think much has changed. So I'm not totally surprised.
Facts. I mean, it could just be that I don't know, just to kind of give it another tidbit, it's like when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, it's that good and that set of weapons. It's like, damn, we don't have that set of weapons. Is he really going to be able to, right? Is he going to be as successful with us if we can't get this in place? He's kind of like the one spot that kind of handicaps him because the quarterback and the Tyreek Hills and the Travis Kelce's are so damn good that it's like, I don't know, maybe franchises don't envision it, but I'm certainly surprised. I don't know. He's from New Orleans, born in New Orleans, Saints jobs open, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a connection, but it's definitely, I don't know. As Blaine said, maybe he kind of missed the boat. I don't know. Maybe he goes to the college game. Maybe he finds something. I highly doubt he can sit and be Andy Reid's offensive coordinator for like the rest of his career, right? Like I don't think he has that in his list of goals. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know. At some point he's got to make a decision for himself, right? I would assume. But yeah, any kind of other tidbits before we kind of wrap it up and get out of here? We kind of went way longer than I expected. A lot of good stuff that kind of came up and got tossed out there, but I don't know. That's kind of all I had. My last final thought, and nothing else drummed up as I got that Eric Bieniemy kind of thought out of my mind.
Closing thoughts for me. The best thing in the playoffs is now over. That's Trent Williams in motion. I fucking loved watching that. That would crack me up. That just felt illegal at times, putting that big boy in motion. So, but very excited for this Super Bowl. It's like finally refreshing and new, right? Yeah, we had the Rams a couple years ago, but it's new with Stafford, and Cincinnati hasn't been there, I believe, since '88. So looking forward to seeing the young guys there for the first time. And like, it just feels like a new Super Bowl, right? We haven't had this matchup before. I've never seen the Bengals in it. So I'm excited to see some new teams. And I don't know who I'm pulling for yet, but it's going to be fun.
For sure. Any closing thoughts from you, Blaine?
Yeah, I kind of echo that. It'll just be a fun matchup. Usually every Super Bowl presents a dynamic where I'm like rooting against a team, not necessarily rooting super hard for a team, but just rooting against one of the teams. And I don't really feel that this year. So I'm excited. I think it'll be an awesome matchup and just a crazy nugget. I remember seeing that in the last 30 years, there has not been a Super Bowl that didn't involve a 1 or a 2 seed. And this year we get a Super Bowl that doesn't involve a 1, 2, or a 3 seed, which is pretty remarkable.
For sure. And I believe this is also the first Super Bowl where both head coaches are under the age of 40. So this young tree of offensive coaches, as we kind of talked on the last one, like, why are you hiring defensive coaches? It kind of bang, another win in the cap for the offensive coaches. But yeah, I mean, just go off what you guys, it should be exciting. We'll get into it next week, obviously, on the Super Bowl preview. But this one feels fun. It feels like, I don't know. We'll see if it can be another 2 weeks that McVay has to prepare to give us 3 points, or if he will give us a little bit more. But obviously the Patriots Super Bowl, the 2 weeks, 3 points, maybe you got overwhelmed by the moment. But I mean, there's a lot of pressure on that LA team going into that, which we will cover next week. But I mean, congrats to the Los Angeles Rams. Congrats to the Bengals. Obviously, big congrats for the Bengals. Those fans have dealt with it for since '88, as you mentioned, Alex. So it's been a long time. So I mean, those guys just need to enjoy the next 2 weeks, enjoy February 13th. Just enjoy the whole process, because I mean, we saw as Eagles fans, you don't, us normal fans that aren't Patriots fans or Tom Brady fans, like, we don't get there that often. So just enjoy the whole experience. I would say as a fan perspective, if you're going for either team, to be honest, we don't know if the Rams will make it back. Obviously, they've had this good little bit of success, but nothing's guaranteed in the NFL today. But yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for today's show. It was a good show. Thank you, as always, Blaine, for kind of coming on, being the third man, giving your insight, kind of giving a third voice in here, which always makes it fun. As always, the Spotify link, if you're an audio only person, it'll get posted in the description. Both of these, the audio only Spotify and this video, will go live at the same time. So you can click the link in the description. It'll take you straight to the Spotify, where you can see all our previous videos, all our previous episodes, as we do one. We've done one for the entire NFL season, which has been super fun. And as always, we'll see you guys next week for the Super Bowl preview.